James Vernon was an English politician and Secretary of State for both the northern and the southern departments during the reign of William III. Origins and education. Vernon was a younger son of Francis Vernon of London, by his wife, Anne Welby, widow daughter of George Smiths, a London goldsmith. Like his elder brother Francis, he was an alumnus of Charterhouse and Oxford, where he matriculated from Christ Church on the 19th of July 1662, graduated B.A. in 1666, and proceeded M.A. in 1669. In 1676 he was incorporated at St John's College, Cambridge, which university he represented in the Parliament of 1678–9. Rise to prominence. Vernon was employed by Sir Joseph Williamson to collect news in Holland in March 1671–2, and in the following June attended Lord Halifax on his mission to Louis XIV. On his return he became secretary to the Duke of Monmouth. It was that erased the obnoxious adjective natural for the patent conferring the command-in-chief upon the Duke in 1674, but left his service in 1678. He then entered the Secretary of State's office as clerk and gazetteer, i.e. editor of the London Gazette. These duties he exchanged on the Revolution for the post of private secretary to Lord Shrewsbury. On Shrewsbury's resignation, Vernon served in the same capacity Sir John Trenchard, by whom he was employed in Flanders in the summer of 1692 to furnish reports of the movements of the army to Sir William Dutton Colt, British minister at Celle. In 1693 he was appointed to a commissionership of prizes, which he held until 1705. On the 30th of October 1695 he was returned to Parliament for Penrhyn, Cornwall, and on the 22nd of July 1698 for Westminster, which seat he continued to hold until the dissolution of the 2nd of July 1702. He again represented Penrhyn in the Parliaments of 1705–7 and 1708–10. On Shrewsbury's return to power, Vernon resumed in name his former relations with him. Shrewsbury's ill health, however, and the course of events soon thrust Vernon into prominence, and during the King's absences on the Continent he acted as secretary to the Lords Justices. On him fell the main burden of investigating the assassination plot, and of hushing up the charges brought by Sir John Fenwick against Godolphin, Shrewsbury, Marlborough, and Russell. In support of the bill for Fenwick's attainder he made on the 25th of November 1696 the only important speech which he is recorded to have delivered throughout his parliamentary career. The dexterity which he displayed in this affair, and Shrewsbury's virtual retirement, enhanced his consequence, and at Sunderland's suggestion he received the seals on the resignation of Sir William Trumbull, and was sworn of the Privy Council. Though he did not formally succeed to Shrewsbury's department on his resignation, the 12th of December 1698, he was thenceforth virtually secretary for both departments until the delivery of the Southern Seals to the Earl of Jersey, the 14th of May 1699. Secretary of State by the King, Vernon was treated rather as a clerk than as a minister. He was hardly more than cognizant of the negotiations for the Peace of Ryswick, and of the Partition Treaty he knew nothing until the draft was placed in his hands for transmission to Lord Somers. He went down to Tunbridge Wells with a mind made up against the treaty, and, though he drafted the blank commission and transmitted it to Holland, he fully approved, if he did not inspire, the letter with which Somers accompanied it. When the treaty was signed he drafted the necessary forms of ratification and procured their authentication by Somers under the Great Seal. With Somers alone of the ministers in England, he shared the secret of the separate articles. When the treaty came before the notice of Parliament, Portland, who bore the first brunt of the attack, sought to share his responsibility with Vernon, whom he represented as cognizant of and concurring in the negotiation from the outset. Vernon cleared himself from this charge by producing with the king's leave the relevant correspondence and, though no less responsible than Somers for the course taken at Tunbridge Wells, he was omitted from the articles of impeachment and was continued in office. He was, in fact, sole secretary during the interval, the 2nd of May the 5th of November 1700, between Jersey's resignation and the appointment of Sir Charles Hedges, and retained the seals when Hedges gave place to the Duke of Manchester on the 1st of January 1701-2. Dismissal and later years. A staunch Whig, Vernon viewed with undisguised alarm the death of the Duke of Gloucester, and proposed that the king should again marry and the succession be settled, in default of issue, in the Hanoverian line, thus passing over Anne. This proposition rendered him so odious to the Tories that, soon after the accession of Anne, he was dismissed and replaced by the Earl of Nottingham. By way of pension he was provided with the sinecure office of teller of the receipt of the Exchequer, of which he was deprived on the decisive victory of the Tories in 1710. He was one of the commissioners to whom, on the 28th of August 1716, the Privy Seal was entrusted during Sunderland's absence on the continent, but held no other office during the reign of George I. His last days were spent in retirement at Watford, Hertfordshire, where he died on the 31st of January 1726-7. His remains were interred in Watford Parish Church. Family. Vernon married, by license dated 6 April 1675, Mary, daughter of Sir John Buck Bart. He had issue by her 2 sons and 2 daughters, one of whom Mary married Michael Harrison, MP for Lisburn, Co. Antrim. His eldest son, James, was ambassador to Copenhagen. His younger son, Edward Vernon, became an admiral, who was famous for his victory at Portobello. Vernon's son by his second wife, Arethusa, Francis, was created Earl of Shipbrigg in 1777.